Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really getting into the world of Sigmund Freud. You hear the name all the time, father of psychoanalysis.
Absolutely. And it's kind of amazing, isn't it, how someone from the 19th century could shape so much of how we think about ourselves, our thoughts, dreams, why we do things.
Exactly. It still echoes today. So the big question we want to explore is, how did one person manage to completely revolutionize our view of the human mind?
It's a huge legacy, and that's what this deep dive is about. We'll explore Freud's main theories, look at the controversies, and there are definitely controversies.
Oh, definitely.
And sort of unpack his lasting impact. We're drawing on transcripts from some educational videos and also some pieces from a historical document. So a really good mix to get a detailed picture.
Right. Our goal here is simple. Pull out the most important bits, the key takeaways from these sources, basically giving you a shortcut to really getting Freud.
Yeah.
Expect some surprising facts, hopefully some fresh insights. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
So where do we start? His beginnings, I suppose. Born 1856, Austrian Empire back then, a town called Szybor in the Czech Republic now.
Mm-hmm.
And what really jumps out from the sources is this idea of him being an outsider, right from the start.
Yeah, that seems key. An ethnic Jew in a largely Catholic city, later an atheist among practicing Jews, it set him apart.
And apparently, even as a student, he was known for being smart, ambitious, but also a bold oppositionist, already challenging things.
And you have to picture Vienna at the time. Victorian Vienna. Extremely puritanical, very restrictive.
Right, like sexuality was just not discussed openly at all.
Not at all. And how they treated mental patients. I mean, the sources describe it as antiquated and in some cases even barbaric care.
Wow, things like brain surgery that sometimes killed people.
Exactly. So when Freud in 1886 started to simply listen to his patients, that doesn't sound radical now, but back then
It was huge, because doctors usually just prescribe stuff, right?
Precisely. They didn't engage in that kind of dialogue, so just listening was revolutionary.
And listening wasn't his only early interest, was it? He was ambitious, looking for fame and fortune too. There was that whole thing with cocaine.
Ah, yes, cocaine. He really thought it was a wonder drug for a while. For exhaustion, depression.
Used it himself, even sent it to his fiancée.
He did, and published on it. But then, of course, the addictive side became clear, and he deeply regretted promoting it. It was a setback. He actually missed out on discovering its use as a local anesthetic, which was a big deal.
But even these early steps led somewhere. What about his time with Charcot in Paris?
Right, Jean-Martin Charcot, that was crucial. He saw hypnosis in action there, saw how it could make people aware of things, thoughts, feelings, fantasies that they weren't conscious of.
So that gave him his first real inkling about the unconscious mind.
That's what the sources suggest, yes, his beginning feeling for the unconscious. Then back in Vienna, there was his work with Joseph Breuer and the famous patient Anna O.
Anna O. She coined the phrase the talking treatment, didn't she?
She did. Finding her life just by talking about disturbing experiences, this was a huge inspiration for Freud. But he took it further than Breuer's method.
How so?
He developed free association. Instead of just talking about specific issues, he encouraged patients to say anything that came into their mind, no matter how random or embarrassing.
Just let it flow?
Exactly. He believed those unfiltered thoughts were the real pathway to the unconscious, letting the hidden conflicts bubble up.
And from listening to these early patients, he came to a pretty startling initial conclusion about hysteria.
Extremely startling and controversial. He first proposed that all hysteria was caused by childhood sexual abuse.
Oh, that's a huge claim.
It was. And he did later revise it, realizing it wasn't that simple or universal. He regretted making such a sweeping statement early on.
So these early experiences, the talking cure, seeing things come to light,
Yeah.
it sparked this radical idea about what's hidden, didn't it?
Absolutely. It led him straight to maybe his most famous concept, the unconscious mind.
Right, the idea that there's this huge part of our mind that we're not aware of, but it's pulling the strings.
Exactly. Filled with repressed memories, desires, feelings, things we've pushed down, but they still control our actions and thoughts without us realizing.
He used that iceberg metaphor, right?
Yeah.
That helps visualize it.
It's a great metaphor. The little tip above the water, that's our conscious mind, what we know we're thinking.
But the massive part underneath.
That's the unconscious, hidden, powerful. Freud called it the real us.
You see hints of it, like Freudian slips.
Right, when you accidentally say something that reveals maybe what you really think or feel, or puzzling dreams, actions you can't explain, Freud saw those as messages from the unconscious.
He also talked about two fundamental drives, didn't he? Eros and thanatos.
Yes, the primal drives. Eros is the life drive. It's about pleasure, connection, creation, survival, satisfaction.
The positive force, kind of.
You could say that. And then there's thanatos, the death drive. This one's darker. It's linked to destruction, aggression, even self-destruction.
A drive towards self-annihilation. That sounds pretty bleak.
It does. Freud suggested we all have this unconscious pull towards returning to an inorganic state, which can come out as aggression towards ourselves or others. He saw human behavior as this constant balancing act.
Between life and death, creation and destruction. A constant conflict.
Precisely. That tension shapes who we are and what we do.
Okay, so if the unconscious is this vast hidden realm, how did Freud think the mind was structured? That leads us to the ego and superego, right?
Exactly. His famous structural model.
Yeah.
3 core parts, always interacting, often clashing.
In constant conflict, as the sources say.
Yeah.
That internal argument you sometimes feel.
That's it. That's the ego and superego battling it out. Let's break them down.
Okay.
First, the id. It's the most primitive part. Pure instinct, basic desires, impulses. It operates on the pleasure principle, meaning it wants instant gratification. Now, no logic, no rules, no reality check. Like a toddler demanding candy. If you're hungry at a restaurant, the id says, eat, now, everything.
Right. Pure, raw desire. Okay, so what keeps the id in check?
That's the ego. The ego tries to understand reality. It operates on the reality principle. It's the mediator between the id's demands and the real world.
So the ego's the practical one.
Kind of. It tries to find safe, realistic, and socially acceptable ways to satisfy the id's urges. So your id wants that expensive phone now. Your ego says, okay, but how? Let's make a budget. Maybe wait for a sale.
Makes sense. And the third part, the superego.
The superego, that's your moral compass. It represents society's rules, ethics, morality, often learned from parents and culture. It tells you what's right and wrong.
So it's the conscience.
Yes, essentially. It creates guilt if you do something wrong and pride or satisfaction if you do something good.
Yeah.
Back to the phone example. The superego might chime in with, do you really need that expensive phone? Isn't that a bit greedy? Maybe donate that money instead.
Okay, so let's put it all together. Say you're on a diet and there's a delicious piece of chocolate right there.
Perfect example.
Your id is screaming.
Eat it, pleasure, now.
Then your superego jumps in.
No. Bad. Unhealthy. You'll feel guilty.
And the ego has to sort it out.
Exactly. The ego tries to find a compromise. Maybe, okay, just have a small piece, or eat it, but go for a run later, or wait until your cheat day. It manages the conflict.
You really see how much of our internal life is this constant negotiation, often unconsciously.
Freud had another metaphor for it, the id as a wild horse, pure energy. The ego is the rider, trying to steer the horse and manage its power. And the superego is like the rider's map or moral guide, telling them where they should go.
That's a good one, too. So the ego has a tough job managing all this. And it uses tools to help, right? Defense mechanisms.
Yes, exactly. These are unconscious strategies the ego uses to protect us from anxiety, guilt, or just uncomfortable thoughts and feelings rising up from the id or the unconscious.
Like mental shields?
Kind of. They shield us from things we'd rather not face consciously. And they often operate without us even knowing.
What are some common ones?
Well, there's repression. That's pushing uncomfortable thoughts or memories deep down into the unconscious so you're not aware of them. Like forgetting a traumatic childhood event, but it still affects your behavior.
Okay.
Then denial. Simply refusing to accept reality because it's too painful. Someone might deny a serious diagnosis or the death of a loved one, at least initially.
Right.
Projection is a big one, attributing your own unacceptable feelings or thoughts to someone else. If you're feeling insecure, you might accuse others of being insecure.
I can see that.
And rationalization, making up logical-sounding excuses to justify behavior you know is questionable, like betraying someone's trust but telling yourself it was for their own good.
Wow. So these are happening all the time, potentially, shaping how we act without us realizing. What stands out to you about how these might play out day to day?
What's fascinating is how normal they are, to an extent. But Freud believed that over-relying on them could actually cause neuroses, sort of trading short-term comfort for longer-term psychological problems.
All right. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. we have to talk about some of Freud's most controversial ideas.
Ah, yes. Time for the Oedipus Complex and the psychosexual stages. These have definitely stirred up the most debate.
Let's start with the Oedipus Complex. What was the core idea there?
Well, Freud proposed that during a specific phase of childhood, a child develops unconscious sexual desires for the parent of the opposite sex and feelings of rivalry towards the parent of the same sex.
So a boy desires his mother and sees his father as a rival, named after the Greek myth, right?
Exactly. Oedipus unknowingly killed his father and married his mother. For girls, the parallel is sometimes called the Electra complex. Freud thought how kids navigate this phase deeply impacts their future relationships and personality.
Yeah, you can see why that one caused a stir, and still does.
Yep.
And then there are the psychosexual stages.
Right. He outlined 5 stages of development in childhood, arguing that our personality develops through them. Again, linking childhood experiences, specifically those related to pleasure zones, to adult character was revolutionary, if controversial.
And if things didn't go smoothly in a stage.
You could become fixated at that stage, leading to certain personality traits in adulthood. Briefly, there's the oral stage, birth to 1 year, focused on the mouth. Fixation might lead to things like overeating or smoking.
Okay.
The anal stage, 1 to 3 years, focus on toilet training, control. Fixation could mean being overly neat or messy.
Anal retentive or anal explosive, those terms come from Freud.
They do. Then the phallic stage, 3 to 6 years, focus on genitals, where the Oedipus complex comes into play. Followed by the latency stage, 6 to puberty, where sexual urges are dormant. And finally, the genital stage, puberty onwards, where mature sexuality develops.
But it's crucial to say, these theories, Oedipus, the stages, they're largely seen as, well, problematic today, right?
Very much so.
Yeah.
By modern psychological standards, they're often considered outdated, unrealistic, oversimplified. The heavy focus on sexuality is criticized, and crucially, they're very hard to test scientifically.
Right, you can't exactly run a lab experiment on the Oedipus complex.
Precisely. That lack of scientific testability is a major criticism across much of Freud's work. Another point is the overemphasis on sex. Critics say he tried to explain too much through the lens of sexual urges.
What else?
The cultural specificity. His theories came out of 19th century Vienna. How well do they apply to other cultures, other times? That's a big question.
Makes sense.
And some views are just seen as plain outdated, especially his ideas about women, like penis envy, which have been strongly challenged.
Speaking of challenges, other major figures came after Freud who built on his work but also pushed back, didn't they?
Absolutely. His ideas were a launch pad, even for those who disagreed. You have Carl Jung, initially a close follower who broke away.
Jung introduced the collective unconscious, universal symbols, archetypes.
Exactly, bringing in spirituality, mythology. Then Alfred Adler, another early associate, rejected the focus on sex. He emphasized social factors, the drive for superiority, the inferiority complex.
And Karen Horney.
A key feminist voice. She directly challenged Freud's views on women, arguing things like penis envy weren't biological, but stemmed from social power imbalances.
So lots of critique, lots of evolution. But despite all that, his impact is undeniable, isn't it?
Undeniable. Even with all the valid criticisms, his profound impact on psychology, on Western culture, literature, art, it's immense. He provided a whole new foundation, a framework for thinking about ourselves, even if we've rebuilt parts of it since.
You really do see it everywhere. Like you said, phrases we use, anal, control freak, Freudian slip, they're just part of the language now.
Totally.
And in movies.
Yeah.
Like Inception exploring dreams and the unconscious. Or even superhero stories. Batman's trauma, the Joker's chaos. You can see ego, superego playing out there.
Yeah, and art movements like Surrealism were directly inspired by his ideas about unlocking the unconscious mind. His influence is woven into the fabric of modern thought.
It's also worth remembering the person behind the ideas, his own struggles.
Definitely. He battled mouth cancer for years, likely from his cigar habit, enduring so many painful surgeries.
And then having to flee Vienna because of the Nazis. His books burned.
Yes, a painful end. He died in exile in London in 1939. It adds another layer, doesn't it? The human story behind these huge, world-changing, controversial ideas.
It really does. So we're wrapping up this deep dive on Sigmund Freud. And it's clear, isn't it? Despite the debates, the updates, the criticisms, his revolutionary thinking fundamentally changed the conversation about the human mind.
It absolutely did. And perhaps the most fascinating takeaway is this. Even if you don't buy into every specific Freudian theory as originally stated, his core insistence
Yeah.
that we need to look beneath the surface, that hidden drives matter, that childhood shapes us, that change psychology forever.
Yeah.
Which leaves us with a final thought, maybe for you, the listener. In what ways might your own unconscious be quietly influencing your choices, your feelings, your daily life, even when you feel like you're completely in the driver's seat?